Psychology myths busted. You've probably heard at least half of these. Maybe you even believed some of them. But here's the problem. A lot of popular psychology isn't actually psychology. It's something someone said once, then someone repeated it, and eventually everybody started calling it science. So let's bust 10 of the most common psychology myths. And number 10 is one that has caused a lot of unnecessary stigma. Myth number 1. We only use 10% of our brain. False. You use far more than 10%. Brain imaging shows activity across many different regions of the brain, depending on what you're doing. And even when you're sleeping, your brain is still working. The 10% idea isn't a scientific discovery. It's a myth that's been repeated for decades, helped along by movies and popular culture. Your brain isn't sitting there with 90% switched off. Myth number 2. You're either left-brained and logical, or right-brained and creative. False. Your brain doesn't divide your personality that neatly. The two hemispheres have different specialized functions, but they constantly communicate and work together. Writing, music, problem-solving, creativity, logic, these aren't simply left brain or right brain activities. So if an online personality quiz tells you you're a right-brained creative person, take it with a very large grain of salt. Myth number 3. Cracking your knuckles causes arthritis. False. The evidence doesn't support that claim. That popping sound comes from changes in pressure and gas bubbles inside the joint fluid. It may annoy the person sitting next to you, but cracking your knuckles isn't known to cause arthritis. So if you've spent years worrying about those pops, you can relax. Myth number 4. You can tell when someone is lying because they look away, touch their nose, or fidget. False. There is no single body language signal that reliably proves someone is lying. Someone avoiding eye contact might be nervous. Someone fidgeting might be anxious. Someone staring directly at you might simply be trying very hard to look convincing. Even trained people are far from perfect at detecting deception. The truth is, lying doesn't come with one universal body language fingerprint. Myth number 5. You can be addicted to absolutely anything. Not exactly. People can develop unhealthy or compulsive relationships with many behaviors and substances, but the word addiction has a specific clinical meaning. Things like substance use disorders and gambling disorder are recognized disorders. Calling every strong habit an addiction can actually make the word less meaningful. So being obsessed with your phone or really loving chocolate doesn't automatically mean you have an addiction. Myth number 6. Listening to Mozart makes you smarter. This one became famous as the Mozart Effect, but the real finding was much smaller than the myth. Some research found a short-term improvement on certain spatial reasoning tasks after listening to music. That doesn't mean Mozart permanently raises your IQ. And it definitely doesn't mean playing classical music to a baby turns them into a genius. Music can be wonderful. But there's no magic intelligence button hiding inside a Mozart symphony. Myth number 7. Opposites attract. It sounds romantic. But psychology tells a more complicated story. For long-term relationships, similarity often matters more than dramatic differences. Shared values, similar attitudes, compatible lifestyles, a sense of humor, and common interests can all help people connect. Differences can absolutely work, but the idea that completely opposite personalities naturally make the strongest couples is more Hollywood than psychology. Myth number 8. Traumatic memories can simply be completely repressed and then recovered exactly as they happened. False. Human memory doesn't work like a video recorder. Every time you remember something, the memory can be reconstructed. That means memories can change. Details can be added. Details can disappear. And people can sometimes become confident in memories that aren't completely accurate. That's one reason recovered memory claims have to be treated very carefully. Memory is powerful, but it isn't a perfect recording of the past. Myth number 9. If you really want something, just visualize it, and it will happen. Not quite. Visualization can be useful, but simply imagining success isn't a substitute for action. One approach researchers have studied is called WOOP: wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. You imagine what you want, then you also imagine what could get in the way, and decide what you're going to do about it. That's a lot more useful than sitting on the couch imagining your perfect future. Dream about the goal, but plan for the obstacle. Myth number 10. Mental illness means someone is crazy or dangerous. False. Mental health conditions are medical conditions. Depression, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, and many others. They can affect the brain, emotions, behavior, and everyday functioning. But having a mental health condition does not automatically make someone dangerous. In fact, people with mental illness are far more likely to experience harm themselves than to be violent toward other people. The word crazy doesn't explain anything, it just adds stigma. So let's go back through what we just busted. You don't use only 10% of your brain. You're not simply left-brained or right-brained. Cracking your knuckles doesn't cause arthritis. There is no universal body language signal that exposes every liar. Not every habit is an addiction. Mozart won't magically raise your IQ. Opposites don't automatically make better couples. Memory isn't a perfect recording. Visualization alone won't make your goals happen. And mental illness does not mean someone is crazy or dangerous. The interesting thing about psychology is that reality is usually more complicated than the myths. And sometimes, the truth is actually more interesting. If you learn something new, subscribe to Red Flag Psychology, because the next myth you believe might be hiding in plain sight.